so much, Dennis. I really appreciate the invitation to talk a little kindness today. And thank you to those of you who are joining as we, as Dennis said, explore and embrace the extraordinary gifts of kindness. In October of 2024, I sat in awe in the beautiful Palazzo di Normani, the historic palace in the heart of Palermo, Sicily. Originally built in the 9th century by the Arabs, it was later expanded in the 12th century by the Normans. Today, this beautiful structure is home to the governing body of the Sicilian Regional Assembly. I'd been invited to Palermo to give a keynote speech the day before at the 11th General Assembly of World Kindness Movement. Now we were sitting in the stunning Sala Mattarella. Gathered in the room were local dignitaries, members of the press, members of World Kindness Movement, and some of them are here today. I'm delighted about that, and the Italian Kindness Movement. We were awaiting the arrival of the president of the Sicilian Regional Assembly. And as we were waiting, Tristica McRae, who is the General Secretary of World Kindness Movement, asked the audience, "What does kindness mean to you?" And then, unexpectedly, Tristica invited a few people to come up to the microphone and to share their thoughts. And as you might guess, I was one of those few. And for a very shy person, that was a little unnerving for me. As a kindness ambassador and the founder of Kindness from the Heart, I've thought a lot over the years about what is my definition of kindness. And kindness to me is a really an amazing value because it embodies so many other really important values like empathy, compassion, service, equality, respect, generosity, benevolence, gratitude, and love. Kindness is a way of being and a way of doing. It is an action, it is a mindset, and it's heartfelt. But the two words that came to me in that moment, in that lovely and historic palace in Italy, were these: compassionate awareness. Later, when I shared the experience with my friend Brad Aronson, Brad reminded me to add the words followed by action. And of course, action would come quickly to mind to Brad because he has written a beautiful book called Humankind, Changing the World One Small Act at a Time. Just happen to have it here. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. Filled with all kinds of actionable kindnesses. I was assuming that action was implied, but now I make the full declaration here. Kindness is compassionate awareness, followed by action. And at this moment in time, humanity needs much more kindness. Kindness to self, kindness to others, and kindness to the planet. Wouldn't you agree? Kindness is, in fact, key to our well-being. It is a superpower and an extraordinary bearer of gifts that can help elevate the human experience. So let's explore a little bit of that, some of those gifts. Kindness produces health benefits for body, mind, and I'd say spirit and soul too. It stimulates serotonin, which helps heal our wounds, and it also promotes happiness, not just in the receiver, but also in the giver, and amazingly, even in simply an observer, someone who's witnessing that kindness. Kindness produces oxytocin, which promotes connection, trust, generosity, and other things while boosting our immune system. Who doesn't need more of that? And people who practice kindness regularly have less of the stress hormone cortisol and tend to age more slowly. And that is becoming more and more important to me as I'm aging rapidly. Kindness is a universal language capable of changing hearts and minds, and sometimes when nothing else can or will. All it requires is intention, a little action, and love. And I believe that even a seemingly small act of kindness can unleash an energy that ripples in ways unimagined, touching countless lives and even transcending generations. And speaking of generations, I don't know if you can see this or not. Show it anyway. Yeah. Thanks, Alan. I am blessed to have parents who created a legacy of kindness. Though my dad's passed away about 16 years ago, I'll still run into people who remember him for his humor, his honesty, his kindness, and generosity, and the amazing cantaloupes and tomatoes that he would grow just, every year just to give them away. My mom is now 96, and she's remarkable. And she's one of the greatest role models of kindness and what it means to create a legacy of kindness to me. And I'm so grateful for that. In 2019, I had an inspiration on Christmas Day about how to celebrate her upcoming 91st birthday. That was to do a kindness initiative where I would invite people to do an act of kindness in her honor and then write it up, send it to me, and I would compile all those acts of kindness into a book to give to her on her birthday. The kind notes and acts that people shared were beautiful, and I'll share a few of those examples. It was hard to narrow down from all of those. It's kind of like picking your favorite child, but I picked a few. So as you listen to each story, I would invite you to imagine the ripples that may have been created through that act of kindness. And if you would, listen to it from the perspective of the receiver, which is how we usually think about kindness and the impact, but also think about it from the impact of the giver, and then also maybe just a casual witness who happened to be in the area, or maybe that they heard about it. So let's start with Carolyn, who shared this with me. As I was walking down the sidewalk on a cold, wet, gray, and windy Chicago day, a homeless man I was passing asked me if I would buy him a cup of hot chocolate. I said yes, and asked if he wanted anything else. He asked for a toasted chocolate chip bagel as well. He was standing outside an Einstein bagel, and I went inside to place the order, and he joined me. We waited in line together while I placed the order, while others were filled, while the bagel was toasted, while the chocolate syrup ran out and was refilled. While we waited, I learned his name was Scotty, that Scotty likes telling jokes and that he sleeps in a nearby garage. He was also curious, asking me about where I'd been and where I was going. Scotty was grateful, in fact, delighted, because he requested and received an extra shot of chocolate syrup in his hot chocolate. Or perhaps it was the extra shot of kindness. And I received a full heart. By pausing and saying yes, I connected gently, human being to human being, heart to heart, with a stranger. Gail is an elderly neighbor. Her nephew's wife had been diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 4. In her early 30s, she had a 15-month-old little boy, and her mother had recently passed away. The young woman had started treatment and was very weak. Gail said, to honor Jean, I've decided to do whatever I can to help this young woman. I've offered rides, babysitting, dinners, and whatever else she needs. It's going to be a long road, and I plan to be on that road with her. Valerie, a middle school teacher, bought books for 10 of her students. Each of these 13 and 14-year-olds had been struggling with their reading, but they had worked hard to accomplish their goals. Valerie inscribed each book, sharing what prompted the gift and her desire for the young reader to appreciate the importance of literacy in their lives. She said, as I look back on my own career and as an educator, I am keenly aware of the seed that was planted in my heart years ago by the many times that I visited Jean's classroom with Jenny. That was the beginning for me, and now here I am, 50 years later, following in her footsteps, For someone with such tiny feet, she certainly left huge shoes to fill. Carrie is Jean's dental hygienist. She said, in honor of Jean's 91st birthday, I've chosen to do acts of kindness for older, single women in my neighborhood. I love to cook and usually make more than my family can eat. And I've taken plates of dinner to 10 women, and it has been so delightful. It's hard for them to cook for one, but so easy for me to make up an extra plate of dinner for them. This will be an act of kindness I will continue for a long time, and it brings me so much joy as the giver as it does for the receiver. And recently I talked to Carrie about that. This was 5+ years ago, and she's still doing that. I love that. Craig is our family dentist. A woman from his church was struggling financially. Craig learned that the woman had some broken teeth and she couldn't afford to have them fixed, although they were causing her a great deal of pain. Craig said he thought about Jean, and he knew that this would be a wonderful act of kindness for her birthday. He fixed the woman's teeth, and she was deeply grateful. And Craig said, or Dr. Van Elfen said, I feel grateful that I have a skill that can help people in need. And finally, Mark from California. He has a blog called Mark's Minute, and it's his way of helping to, it's his ministry of helping to bring people to God. To amplify kindness and to honor Jean on her birthday, here's a little about what Mark posted on that day. All of us should be striving to pass on and leave a legacy of committed, continuous, and Christ-like kindness. Just recently, someone in our global tribe told me about a woman in Utah, Jean Hendrickson, who personifies God kindness day in and day out. She just celebrated her 91st birthday and continues to look for ways to express kindness every single day. Jean handed down that gift and legacy to her daughter Jenny, who is committed to ensuring it lives on. That's the sort of kindness legacy we should all seek. Now, at the time, Mark's Minute had over 500,000 subscribers in 63 countries. And I just imagine the ripple effect of hundreds of thousands of people across the world being prompted on Mom's birthday to consider their own legacy of kindness. I think that is really amazing. So this is, you can see this. So there's hard to show that. How about that? So this is the book that I was delighted to present to Mom on her birthday, and it was filled with 133 acts of kindness done in her honor. And it was really hard to even quantify down to that number, but that was 133 set examples of the kindness initiatives. She was deeply touched, as you might imagine, and she savored every word and action. And then she wrote a letter to each of the contributors, and I think this was really special. She said, wow, I'm overwhelmed by this wonderful book. Your acts of kindness have inspired me to do more. So on Saturday, I gave a loaf of homemade bread to a neighbor who was serving a meal to some friends. The name of a wonderfully upbeat book was also passed on. We all need positive words and thoughts along the way. This Friday, several friends will sit at my table to share my homemade bread and soup. We will chat about our families, our hopes and dreams, and our ups and downs. Hopefully, each of us will leave the table with happy, positive thoughts and feelings. And other kind acts are working their way into my heart and mind. I intend to do an act of kindness for each of your kind acts and dedicate them to those who participated in this dream of Jenny's. We just need, and I think there's a lot of wisdom here, we just need a listening ear, eyes to discern the needs of others, a voice to give comfort, hands to do acts of kindness, an open heart, and a strong will to do good. Thank you, my friends. God bless you all. The birthday girl, Jean.
Wow.
So that was in February of 2020. early in the COVID pandemic. At 91, Jean made 100 masks for healthcare workers when masks were hard to come by, if you remember that. And she made countless loaves of bread for friends, family, and strangers. And after 133 acts, we just simply stopped counting. But those kindnesses continued, both from my mom and also from others in the acts that were done. I know that those ripples continue on. We can quantify some of the impacts of the ripples. We'll never know all that happened, but I'll tell you that with the 133 acts of kindness that were done, and Mom was moved to do 133 more. And then a friend, Jim, was attending a KindFest USA where I was sharing about that story. He was inspired to do 133 acts of kindness. And then others have also wanted to do kind acts for people that do a similar activity for people that are having birthdays or special events. So you can look at that 133 plus 133 plus 133 plus one birthday gift. That's 400 acts of kindness right there in one simple little gift. So the ripples really, really do go out. As I said earlier, even a seemingly small act of kindness can unleash an energy that ripples in ways unimagined, touching countless lives and transcending generations. And again, at this moment in time, humanity needs much more kindness. We all need much more kindness to self, to others, and to the planet. So I'm going to stop and close my sermon on kindness. Can I get an amen on kindness rules, kindness rocks? And I'm looking forward to joining all of you as you share your insights and thoughts and wisdom about the beautiful gifts that can come to our lives and to our communities through acts of kindness.